Let's elongate this intro.
Just so you know, I'm actually a prince here in Brazil, and I actually need to transfer you some very valuable stuff.
I feel like the question is, what are your plans for world domination?
My question is, when are you focusing on Latin America?
Yeah, we're going to Mexico.
Yes!
Hi, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Diego.
And welcome to the Superist podcast. We're going to be talking about what's hot and what's not in the world of digital and Web3. And on today's episode, I'm so freaking excited for this episode. So we've got the CEO and co-founder of Magic Eden, Jack Liu. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is next level. This is really exciting.
Yeah. But okay, so before we start off, I just have to say I've got some pretty freaking impressive stats about Magic Eden because you guys are actually the biggest NFT marketplace on Solana. And I was going through some of your trade volumes and stuff, and I was actually just blown away. So you only launched in September 2021, which is, I'm trying to think, only a couple of months ago. And in your first 2 months, you did 200 million in USD trading volume, and your current trading volume is it's over 1.7 billion USD, which is just, I can't even think of, that's just so much money. It's like, I can't even, my small brain can't even compute to how much that is. You've got over 3,000.
Imagine converting that to my Brazilian real.
Oh my God. You'd be like,
Please quote that in real in the future. Get that number up there.
Just convert that. So it's insane.
That's a great one. Let's re-edit this so we quote it in real. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Quote it in real is going to be a lot more. It's just going to be insane.
Even in Sol, I was like, what the hell is this number? It's effing massive. You've got a team of, well, you've grown from 4 to 60 across 10 countries. And you're also backed by people including Coinbase, Solana Capital, co-founders of Phantom. Like, it's just nuts. So firstly, congratulations, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat to us.
No, not at all. Super happy to be here. And yeah, obviously great to hear our numbers quoted.
We just have you here just so we can, just say how amazing you are and how amazing the things you're doing are, and that's it.
Let's keep this coming, man. Let's elongate this intro. The full hour. Thank you. No, we really appreciate it, and thank you for giving me the chance to talk a little bit about Magic Eden. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to kick it off because I want to know, and I feel like I've been watching the NFT market play space, and I feel like more and more are popping up all the time. How would you say that you guys are different? Because, and I guess our audience, there are people who are well and truly down the Web3 rabbit hole, like Diego and myself. And then there are people who are still quite new on their Web3 journey. So can you explain, I guess, what the USPs are for Magic Eden compared to other NFT marketplaces?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, Magic Eden, we're the #1 Solana NFT marketplace right now. We've got this is the beauty of building on open source ecosystems. All of the data is transparent, right? So, we index all of the NFT trading that happens on Solana, and we think we have around 95% market share right now.
Jesus.
Yeah. And
very dominant.
Well, I think it's a signal that we're building something that users and the community likes. So we're proud of that, and we're actually very grateful for the community support as well. We think about this as kind of building something in partnership with the community. To the question of like what makes us different, I think playing off the theme that I just mentioned, like two things. One is it's like our community-driven mentality and our community-driven DNA. So we're very grassroots focused, right? Like we want to build things transparently. We want to listen to the community transparently. We want to make sure we have a two-way dialogue with users in the ecosystem all the time. And some examples of that would be like this week we just launched the Magic Eden DAO, which is a very Web3 crypto NFT centric concept. And like tactically, it's kind of just like a Discord group where people can chat about stuff. But it has a very like Web3 crypto ethos and some like cultural norms that's attached to it. It's got like voting and all of this kind of stuff. So our mentality has always been very be close and be like tied at the hip to the community, and I think that makes us pretty different from some of the other marketplaces and the way that they interact with other actors in the ecosystem. And then number two, like Magic Eden, we love pushing the boundaries, right? Like we love innovating, and we chose to build on Solana precisely because we think this is where the next major wave of innovation will happen. And there's some special properties of Solana that enables this to happen. But yeah, Magic Eden, we're the first to have bidding auctions on Solana. We're the first to do white labeling, where the principle would be users shouldn't have to come to Magic Eden. We'll bring Magic Eden to where the users are, right? So if there's an app with a ton of users, we'll put Magic Eden in that app. Magic Eden doesn't have to live by itself. So we were the first to have examples of that concept. And then we were the first to launch our mobile app. We were the first to launch this primary issuance product called Launchpad. And we're the first marketplace to have like immersive games. So you can play the game on Magic Eden without having to buy the NFT. So I think that's another vector of differentiation. We love to be first and push the boundaries for where this thing could go.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can definitely, we've had a few chats and I can feel that being disruptive is 100% part of your DNA, which I really love. And especially in Web3, there's still so much newness to discover. And like the tech that we're probably going to be using in probably even like 6 months hasn't even been created yet, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask you as well, Jack. Because if you haven't been around that long, but you already made so much of such an impact. And everything in this industry happens in dog years, right? So what?
Word.
My main question is what happens behind the curtains? Like to develop something of such an amazing quality and value proposition as Magic Eden, as compared to like the time that you guys have actually been online. Like, what was the process and what was the reason that drove you to create the platform?
If I could say one thing to toot our own horn, like we have 4 founders, and I think our founding like team skill set was really complementary to doing something like this. So number one, like we had I myself, I used to work at FTX, and I used to work at product management at Google, so came from a lot of experience in thinking about exchanges. How do you have liquidity for an asset that trades? And then also just building pretty polished consumer internet products. Our chief operating officer, Joshin, was a product manager at Coinbase. Then before that, he was employee number 2 at DYDX. So very similar. Like we understand the exchange game and like building internet products really well. CTO and chief engineer, Sid and Rex, those guys were like really OGs. Early like founding engineering team at Uber Eats. Like they were there when Uber Eats was like fucking like a design file, right? And they left when it was like double-digit billions in transaction volume. Yeah, so they have very good intuition about marketplaces, like supply, demand, like who are the right users to focus on. What are the main motivations for like different user groups when they come into marketplaces? So I think like the convergence of that skill set really helped us form like a vision for how we want to build Magic Eden and the right sequencing to build things and which things to go hard on, which things to be more relaxed about. I think that helped a lot. And I think separately, like, Magic Eden, like we believe in, like, I have this philosophy, like a company is just the sum of the people who work there. It's not really the founders, right? And a company's success is just the sum of like all the great decisions, the brain power, and the effort of all the people who work there. So we're actually very fortunate to hire like a really, I would say, elite team. And they're all very elite in their own way, like different team members. And I think it's actually we all learn from each other, and the combination of their perspectives and our perspectives combine to make like what Magic Eden what it is today, and combine to put us in like some really good decisions, right? That got us to the growth of where we are now.
Yeah, and can I say I've met quite a few of your team, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be gate crashing one of your team dinners next week. I've just invited myself along, and I can really see that you've got, it's almost like a family culture. I mean, when we caught up, it was at your mum's house because you're visiting from San Fran, and hang out with your mum, and it was just amazing. You're so down to earth, despite everything that you've achieved, and you can just see how passionate your team are about the vision and how behind it they are. So I guess, when it comes to creating an amazing culture, like how have you actually done that?
Yeah, it's that's a really good question. And like creating culture is something that we're very, very intentional about. Like we actually think really hard about, and we try to make that uh, basically perpetuate through many aspects of the business, right? I'll probably like give a few facets, and I'm sure this is not exhaustive around like what we're doing at the company. But I think like the first of all, you have to have very clear principles as a company, and those sometimes are expressed as cultural values, and sometimes they're expressed as like the way that we make trade-offs, the way that we navigate through very ambiguous decisions. But it's really important to have those principles, and we actually have four very clear principles at the company, right? Which is number one, we have customer obsession or community obsession, like obsess about what the user wants. Number two, we have a principle called Web3 over Web2, which
Ooh,
is anytime we choose where there's a decision about like do things the Web3 way or do things the Web2 way, we choose the Web3 way,
I
right?
freaking love that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Number three, we have something called your problem is my problem. It's about unity and it's about ownership. It's about like, everyone's the owner of the company and you drive things forward, but we all have each other's backs. And that's like a really important property of a great startup, that everyone like backs each other. Because a lot of the time it's pretty ambiguous what to do, and we all have to make decisions, high risk, high stake decisions in low information environments, but it's important for everyone to buy in. And then the last principle we have is called champions mindset, which is like we're here, we're here to win, right? Like we have a vision for what we want to achieve and what we think the NFT ecosystem could be, and we want to be the pioneer to achieve that. Yeah, so we have those principles, and we are very intentional about what those principles are. And then number two, I think it's like building a culture. It's you have to put those principles or put those values into practice every day, right? And you have to show that you live those values. And I think like I worked in big companies, many big companies before this, and at some point like cultural values become like a platitude, right?
Yeah.
Like people just say
Yeah.
like some bland like platitudes that it's like a horoscope, like it can't be
Yeah.
wrong, right? But you don't know how it works in real life. But we use those principles every day, the for that we talk to make really tricky decisions. And in a startup, like every day is like a piece of white paper. You can do whatever you want, and you have to make choices. And we use those principles to make choices, and the team can see that we use those principles, and they embrace it and they internalize it, and that's how we build a really strong culture. Yeah.
That's insane. Because, and with all due respect as well to the engineering team, but when we usually look at, especially people, and I think that, I don't know, I'm just going to come from a personal place here, but I always tell Lisa, for instance, how, like I grew up playing video games, and there was always this taboo around gamers, and now gamification is everywhere in every aspect of everything that we see, and it's most definitely going to become even more embedded. But it's just like this thing how we're creating decentralized technology, working from home, and everything else. There's such a challenge. For instance, I have my company, Lisa has hers, and culture. I'd say it's by far like the biggest challenge that we have. Because facing the current pandemic, obstacles and everything else, building a culture remotely is already hard enough, and around a product and around a vision and around something like that. I can only imagine how hard it can be as well. But you guys are killing it, so that's amazing. Good on you guys. That's I'm definitely. I wrote down all the all the values and the things you were saying, Jack. So if you see anything like it in my website, it's not plagiarism. It's just it's just.
What a compliment! What a compliment! I like it. I like it.
But so basically, can I ask you a question? As a Web2 marketer, I'm guilty. I've of course I've heard of Magic Eden. I've connected my wallet and everything already. And I always look up, more or less where traffic is mostly coming from. And I saw a majority of it now is coming from the US. How is your vision on this international sort of market that we see that it's kind of like quote unquote for the taking almost. We see like companies like Axie Infinity coming from Vietnam and just completely dominating worldwide. What are your plans on and where do you see the most opportunity for expansion for you guys?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So
I feel like the question is, what are your plans for world domination?
my question is, when are you focusing on Latin America, man? We need some
yeah,
work here.
Dude. Well, we love LATAM creators. We had a series, like a podcast, not like a Twitter space a while back, kind of heroing folks from non-US, kind of non-North America markets, and we had this LATAM creator, and it was just amazing. Like they had it was like art that was blending kind of indigenous kind of culture from back there, but also the Spanish kind of influence and putting it all together. And yeah, I was very amazed. It was
yes,
culturally rich, insanely rich, right? Yeah, seriously, we love I don't know how to describe it other than you just feel the strength of the culture, right? And the diversity of the culture. And it was amazing, right? And I mean, I love art of all variations, but there's some art that's pixelated, which is very crypto. But then we love seeing people represent where they come from. I think the question about LATAM, or just this is I think about expansion in a few different vectors. There's geographic expansion, then there's category expansion. So basically from PFPs to games to art to music. And then there is basically chain expansion, right? Basically operating system expansion. And then the last one is probably channel expansion from web to mobile, right? And from mobile to maybe other systems. So I think for us right now, we have some level of product market fit within predominantly PFPs on Solana within the English speaking audience. And we are looking for ways to grow. There is still actually a lot of ways to grow just within that space. And how I probably want to do this is through concentric circle. So where we are really strong, we can leverage that strength to grow into something adjacent. And then once we tap that out, we can then do something else. So yeah, so LATAM is definitely on the books. I think even within the English speaking markets itself, we have a ton of work to do. We haven't done mobile really well. We can just do channel expansion and don't have to spread ourselves too thin that way. But yeah, I would say on the books, we have some framework for thinking about it. And then, yeah.
I think you're going to Mexico, aren't you, soon?
Yeah, we're going to Mexico.
We'll have to get Diego to take you around. He'll show you to all the cool places and we'll take you drinking.
We have an office in Mexico City. I don't know if you're going to Mexico City or if you're going to the party area, Cancun and such. No judgment, whatever you're gonna do. But,
we're going to the party area. It's been a rough 5 months, man.
The good thing about Latin America is that every city is a party city, man. So you make the best of it anywhere you are. But we do have an office in Mexico City. Right now I'm in São Paulo, but there, definitely there's an invitation. Anytime.
You can do some shots together, and you can FaceTime me, and I can see you guys getting messy on the dance floor. Um, so you actually mentioned like it's been a tough 5 months, and as we sort of touched on at the start, 5 months in Web3 world is like 50 years in the real world. I feel like I've aged so quickly since just getting into the world of Web3. And look, I would say that it is challenging for the Web3 NFT space because there are a lot of hacks going on, and there's a real microscope, I think, on Web3 because let's face it, there's literally bad people everywhere in every industry doing bad things, but Web3 for whatever reason, I think because people just don't really understand it, it's really like there's a huge focus on it. And Diego and I post a lot of content on social about LinkedIn and Web3, and generally like the commentary is pretty positive, but you will have people come in and go, NFTs are a scam, like this whole thing's just a joke. So what do you have to say for people like who are just still going, NFTs are a scam?
I mean, some of those comments are very fair, right? And that they probably come from a place of like seeing specific examples of that, and like there's no shortage of examples, to be really honest, right? Um, you know, we so I like my perspective on this is, I think I probably have like a few layers there. I think like the first is that, Magic Eden, we're a technology company, so we bet on new technologies. That's in our DNA and that's in our mindset, right? And with every new technology, there is advocates and there's detractors, and every technology goes through this curve of adoption, right? Where you have basically like optimists who are willing to take a leap of faith at the start, and then you have folks who really need to see something tangible that touch their everyday life before they jump on the train. And that's very fair. That's just human nature. And from our perspective, like we don't need to convince people. Like that's human nature throughout eons, like millenniums, and NFT is not the first kind of instance to face to go through that cycle, right? And I think like from that perspective, the implication for me and for Magic Eden is just that we continue to do good work. Like we come from a place of really good intention of trying to show off the real value and the real utility of this technology. And every day we wake up and we try to put one good foot in front of another and take one good step in the right direction. And I think like after many of those steps, like more and more people will become more touched, more inspired, and feel the tangible value of this. But yeah, it's the curve of every new technology platform. I think like the other side of this is like, something that's more specific would be like, there we see that NFTs, we think NFTs are like a new primitive on the internet. It's like a new building block that just got unlocked, and we can use this Lego brick in many different ways. And there's some really interesting things that we think are amazing, right? So, for example, like NFT profile pictures have become almost like a luxury good, right? It's like your Audemars or like your Rolex, but on the internet world. And those human needs and those human motivations of wanting to have status symbols, those have existed for centuries. They are not new human needs. They're just human needs that got translated into a new manifestation. So in and of itself, like we are excited by that, and we think there is something there, and we want to be the pioneers to explore that and kind of educate people and help people on board onto that. For example, another example like gaming and in-game items and in-game merchandise, those are very well known like paradigms. But now NFT just has like really good synergies into that space as a new building block that people can play with. So we think there is a lot of opportunity there as well. And I think like the last layer of this is, like, yes, this is pretty cool. Every new technology has like, early optimists and then folks who need to wait a bit before they see it. Secondly, like, we see it, right? We see these use cases and we believe in them, and we think it's our job to showcase them well. But I think lastly, it's like those folks make really fair comments, right? There are like scams everywhere. And in Web3, it's like there's no substitute for doing your own research and being really careful. Because if you think about in real life, before you give your credit card to someone or before you give your bank account details to someone, you'd be checking them out, right? You'd be making sure they have like a FPOS machine that looks legit, or their storefront looks legit, or you ask about them.
If it's not the Prince of Nigeria saying that he wants to transfer his father's fortune to
Exactly.
Spain.
Exactly, right? So and it's the same. I really think people need to absolutely have the same mentality on Web3. Because Web3 it's the same. You're just handing out your debit card to people. Uh, but if you hand out your debit card to people on the Web3 world, like don't like be very careful about the people with very little track record, where the technology is super nascent, and people coming out of nowhere to speak to you. Like in real life on the street, you wouldn't do that, right? You wouldn't be tapping your credit card on a FPOS machine that looks like it's made out of sticky tape. And you wouldn't be
Diego
like,
might, to be honest. He's made some dodgy transactions in the past.
It's my side hustle.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think fair comments all the way around. But we as Magic Eden, we're trying to we're the optimists in this group.
And that's really interesting because a lot of comments that I hear is about like people saying like, oh, wasn't blockchain meant to be this new era of security and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And we now see marketplaces such as I'm gonna name a competitor, OpenSea, having issues with security, hacking and phishing and everything else. What do you think are the next, and what are you guys doing at Magic Eden, for instance? Because we know that, like you said yourself, the fear of being scammed is high now, and people are looking for security. So what are your views on the recurring issues that we have on that space, and how are you guys tackling that?
Yeah. No, that's a super great question. So I think like number one, like crypto and NFT is super nascent. So like the security infrastructure and like the safety norms are not well developed at all. I would imagine it almost to be like, late 90s internet where, you like e-commerce was just taking off, and, people were sending money all over the internet, and like there were scams everywhere. And then like kind of PayPal came along, and PayPal actually had a bunch of fraud issues too, but they really did something to create more trust in that space. So it's a high risk, high volatility, and low infrastructure environment right now in crypto. I think from Magic Eden's perspective, like again, like we probably answer this question using our cultural values, right? So number one is we're community obsession and user obsession is our foremost principle. So we do something that the users want, and users want to trade, or users want to buy NFTs or transact NFTs in a safe, reliable, informed way, right? And it's our responsibility as a platform, if we want to be a leader, to honor those expectations. Right? At the same time, like our second principle is about Web3 over Web2, which to me means that we need to find a Web3 way of offering people kind of the safety that they would like, right? So I'll give you an example of this, which is like what we've done is one of our products is called Launchpad, and there is a lot of like community expectation for us to go identify like the identities of our creators, right? But for us to do KYC, that is kind of like a Web2 kind of paradigm way of doing things. But that doesn't mean we won't do it. But instead of what we've done is we've partnered with FTX, one of the leading crypto exchanges in the space, to say, no, we would only accept creators who have KYC'd with FTX. And we will build a bunch of technology to verify that they have indeed KYC'd with FTX, right? And that to us is more of a Web3 way of achieving both of these outcomes, to make sure that, hey, at some point, there was identity verification, and it was done in the spirit of improving security and safety for our end users. But at the same time, like we've done it in a way where we rely on partnerships, right? We work with folks who are much more experienced at doing these kind of things than us. And we do this way in a way that it builds like more composability and more partnerships, which is one of the central tenets of Web3. So yeah, I think like from, to answer that question of, yes, there are scams, there are like security problems in crypto and NFTs. Like the Magic Eden way of doing things is like we lean into those expectations from our users, but we try to find the way that it's going to be the new Web3 norm of doing it. It's really hard. It's, to be really honest, it's like really, really hard. Like it's really easy just to do something very simple, but I think like finding the right balance is probably what creates the most value and what creates the most innovation here. Yeah, it's the hard problem that's like nothing worth doing is easy, right? Kind of thing. It's the hard problems that's really valuable to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. And it must be so weird because a lot of the stuff that you're going to be doing hasn't been created yet. So there's no clear roadmap for going, okay, so this is the next step. If you're creating an NFT marketplace, this is the next natural evolution. You're literally looking out into nothing. Like there's no roadmap or there's no preconceived idea of what's going to happen. So I'm really excited to see where you take it. So I want to keep talking, but I know you like we have to wrap up because you've got a million and one things to do. So just to finish off, I want to say, what can we expect from Magic Eden this year? But that is just like in Web3, that's just way too many years. So what can we expect in the next, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months is like centuries away.
It'll be web 5.5.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's true. We've got a lot of things in the works, right? For Magic Eden. So I think number one of the really big themes for us is how can we give back to the community? So and that actually kicked off yesterday with our DAO and our own NFT launch called the Magic Ticket. I think like the central philosophy here is like I would like when Magic Eden wins for the community to win also. And when the community wins, Magic Eden wins. And I think that is a philosophy that we want to build towards. And we have many, many more initiatives and a roadmap to basically achieve that. And like we're very, very excited to do that. I think like secondly, like we really believe in immersion. So we believe in this paradigm of saying, like like a marketplace for the longest time, like when you think about marketplace, is the place to buy things. So it's the place to buy things, then you can bring it home and then you experience all the cool shit with the thing that you just bought, right? But it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like we want people to come to Magic Eden and feel inspired by NFTs and get value from it without even buying anything. And then if you then happen to feel like so compelled to buy something, then you can. So we would like to reverse that paradigm. And like you can see an example of that with the way that we're doing games, which is if you go on Magic Eden and you go to the gaming tab, you can play the game. You don't have to buy anything, but play the game and you feel inspired by NFTs and you feel inspired by what could be the future of how to build communities on the internet. And then you might feel like, oh man, now I need that gold AK-47 because like I really, then I get it. I get it now, right? Then that's the experience we want to have. And that principle of like immersion, giving people value before they have to buy anything and flipping the concept of a marketplace on its head is something that we strongly believe in, and we want to push towards that.
I have one last question if I still have time. You guys let me know. But my question that I always try to understand is more from a brand point of view. Is Magic Eden for brands as well? And what are the advantages for brands to be in these marketplaces today? Say like the community that they have behind them.
Like you mean like big IP brands like Nike or something like that? Yeah, absolutely. I think like there's no boundaries to what we want to do with Magic Eden. So 110% yes. I think like we also talk to brands, and I think like there's always been a tricky problem to solve, which is you have to translate the brand's value proposition, which is generally from a Web 2 or like an analog world, right, into Web 3. And basically working with brands to create the bridge so that it feels natural, organic, and it feels real, and it also lives up to the brand's own like legacy and storied reputation is like a pretty complex problem to solve. But we're absolutely interested in doing that. So like we love, like for example, like what Artifact has done on ETH, right? They really brought like hype like street culture into an NFT audience, and what Dapper Labs did with like sporting culture, like basketball, and they brought that to a crypto audience. Like we would love to do that. I would say that right now, Magic Eden is on Solana has the biggest audience by far. So we have probably like 1 million plus unique sessions per day.
That's insane.
Each session is like 15 minutes. So like people, it's like
I
real
can vouch
session.
for that. I looked it up.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's real sessions. People are like, each session is 15 minutes. People are just like scrolling and looking at stuff.
Sessions on the website is just out of this world.
Yeah, so we have a huge audience, and those people love NFTs, and we want to find a bridge for them to also love the NFT experiences of brands as well. So yeah, it's huge. Yeah, we want to do that.
Okay, I want to ask one more question. I promise I'll let you go after this question. Now I want this to be like completely unfiltered response. What
How many
message?
punks do you own?
What's your wallet address? No, just kidding.
I'm a small fish.
Just so you know, I'm actually a prince here in Brazil, and I actually need to transfer you some very valuable stuff. So please let me know later on.
Yeah, don't open any links from Diego is my red hot tip.
Yeah.
He is sends a lot of dodgy links.
Just ruining my site.
I would love to know, completely unfiltered. You can say whatever you want. What's your message to your competitors? I'd love to know what you'd like to say to them.
Ooh, cat fight.
We're going to cause a little bit of beef here on the internet. No, just kidding.
No. I think like, to be honest, like we don't, for the vast majority of companies who like are in our space, we don't view them as competitors. Like everyone is just trying to do their own thing, and they have their own vision to pursue, right? And today it seems like we're competitors because the space is small and it feels like a fishbowl, and there's a lot of overlap. But I think like we all in our hearts like have a different vision that we're pursuing, and at least for Magic Eden, we're staying on our we want to be steadfast in our mission. I think like we have obviously companies that we look up to who are much bigger than us, who have become more successful than us, and we like want to learn from them. Like at a certain level, I have a huge amount of respect for fellow founders, like who took a leap of faith, left their cushy job, and then just went to eat glass, right? Like probably a lot of like masochism and pain-seeking behavior there.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for them, and we want to like learn from them. But we also want to basically do Magic Eden our way, right? Like, which is we have our own way of doing things, and we believe in the way of doing things, and we think like, the way how we're going to do things is probably going to create a lot of value for the world, and yeah, we want to go our own way.
I have so many questions. I love that.
We need to do a part 2. That's a very beautiful answer. It's a very beautiful answer.
May I ask a quick question, because I see this really very often. I'm just going to take the opportunity. I'm definitely going to link up with you later, Jack, on any media that you are. But I see, and you mentioned this right now. I see a lot of people trying to create the next Facebook, right, on the Web3. A lot of people trying to launch platforms, marketplaces, blah blah blah. The next Web3 social. But here we are talking about security issues, blah, blah, a lot of other stuff that are coming up that will need, solving through very scalable businesses as well. What would you say to young entrepreneurs out there, the young entrepreneurs that are entering, the 20-something years old, they're jumping right into Web3, building their own stuff. A lot of people that I talk to don't even have, a technical background, a dev background, an engineering background, and they're jumping into this space, developing amazing stuff. What would you say for someone that is looking to launch their platform, their business? What, not to focus on, say, for instance, launch the next Facebook, but what would be your advice for them?
Oh man, I think like, well, number one, I think it's all about doing. I think like there's no, to me like there's no. So yeah, I used to be a management consultant, and like that was my job, was to come up with beautiful decks with like really beautiful strategies.
Yes, I still have a chance.
And fancy words as well.
Yeah, fancy words.
That's all I do.
Like,
that's all I do.
Yeah, look at just look at tea leaves of what the future of the universe is going to be. Like that was my job, but I kind of feel that doesn't work at all, to be really honest. And I'm kind of the opposite of that. to be really honest. And that's probably why I didn't last in the industry, even though I have a lot of respect for people who do that kind of stuff. I have a lot of mentors in that space. But yeah, like what I think is like, there is no beautiful strategy for the business universe, and no one has the true insights of where the world is going to be for 5 years from now. And that's especially true if you want to do something in crypto. So, time is of the essence, and it's all about just getting shit done. And like every day waking up and putting one foot in front of another and trying to walk in the right direction, right? So I think it's that's the number one piece of advice, right? I actually honestly think that like, our true competitive advantage is almost like we made way more mistakes than everyone else, but we just made it a lot faster because we were always working. And then we just learned, and then we always got up the next day and just walked in another direction and learned from the mistakes that we made. But we're always doing stuff, and we're always like, learning, right?
That's awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. I think a lot of people needed to hear that.
Yeah, I think as well, like being like willing to work when your competitors aren't is when you're going to move forward so much quicker. And I also just want to say, I loved how you said before, you'll be ready to eat glass, because that's literally like running a business. It's like freaking hurts, but it's enjoyable pain, I like to think anyway. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jack. Honestly, we could speak to you for hours. So maybe we need to bring you back when you've done your next 2 billion, 3, 4, I don't even know. We'll speak to you in 6 months and you're like, yeah, just talk to my my assistant. I don't think I'll have time for you guys. So,
yeah, what's the name of your assistant? It's Mark Zuckerberg.
Elon Musk. Yeah, I'm actually in Elon's yacht, so I won't have time. But thank you so much, and a massive congratulations to yourself and the co-founders and the team. Like, you've created such an incredible product, and yeah, we're really excited to watch your continuous evolution in the world of Web3, and look forward to.
As users as well.
Yeah, exactly. Diego's going to go off and buy some NFTs now. Yeah.
Oh man,
please.
Thanks so much, Jack.
It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, y'all. Really enjoyed this, and yeah, appreciated the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.